Hey guys, Tyler here. Welcome back to another travel video. If you're taking a cruise to Bermuda and you want to know the best way to spend your time, watch this video for some tips on how to get the most out of your short stay in Bermuda. Let's go.
Getting into Bermuda is an experience all by itself. The approach to the island can be challenging for large cruise ships, so tugboats came out to help guide the Norwegian Jewel safely into the Royal Naval Dockyard. And once we were alongside the Carnival Venezia, we were officially in Bermuda. Our itinerary gave us 2 days on the island. My sister had booked an excursion for us on day 2, but today we were completely on our own. Our first goal was to explore the historic town of St. George's. We disembarked the ship and made the short walk over to the Spirit of St. George, a complimentary tender service provided by the Norwegian Cruise Line. The ferry ride takes about an hour, but honestly, that's part of the fun. The water around Bermuda is an incredible shade of blue, and along the way we passed colorful homes, fishing boats, rocky shorelines, and historic fortifications scattered around the island. It's a pretty relaxing way to see Bermuda before you've even started exploring. Eventually, we threaded our way into St. George's Harbor and pulled up at the ferry terminal. From here, it's just a short walk into the heart of the old town.
You need, if you're going into the town, you walk right across the gas station. Walk right, and you will be on Water Street. Okay?
St. George's is definitely worth exploring on foot. Founded in 1612, St. George's is one of the oldest continuously inhabited English settlements in the Americas. The town has retained a remarkable amount of its historic character, with narrow streets, pastel-colored buildings, old stone walls, and buildings dating back hundreds of years. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The streets are compact, colorful, and very walkable, so you don't really need a plan. Just wander around and see what you find. One of the first places we stopped was the Old Town Hall, right in the center of St. George's. The building dates back to the early 1700s and has been an important part of the town's civic life for centuries. From here, we continued toward one of Bermuda's most historic landmarks, St. Peter's Church. This is one of those places where the history is impossible to miss. St. Peter's was established in 1612, the same year St. George's was founded, and the present church dates back to the 1700s. It's actually recognized as the oldest Anglican church in continuous use outside the British Isles. Inside and around the church, you'll find centuries of history, including old memorials and gravestones telling the stories of the people who lived here. One thing I found particularly interesting was how much information about people's lives, and even their deaths, is preserved right on the walls and memorials. It really gives you a sense that you've walked through a place where generations of people have lived, worked, worshipped, and died.
Okay, so that was a very unique church. Now I am headed to Tobacco Bay Beach. I'm going to catch up with my brother-in-law, niece, and nephew who already started walking that way. It's about a half mile, and we waited for a cab to get my mom and dad over there, but we just couldn't seem to get a taxi, so they're going to get lunch with my sister, and I'm going to check out the beach with my niece, nephew, and brother-in-law, and then we'll all meet back up at the ferry to get us back to the ship.
The walk to Tobacco Bay isn't particularly difficult, but there is a little bit of uphill walking. Along the way, I come across another really interesting piece of history, the unfinished church. Construction here began in the 1800s after St. Peter's Church had become too small for the growing congregation. But construction was plagued by problems, including funding issues. Eventually, work stopped for good, leaving the enormous Gothic structure unfinished. From here, I continued toward Tobacco Bay, and this was one of the highlights of the day. Tobacco Bay is absolutely beautiful. The water here is incredibly clear and that unmistakable Bermuda blue, and the bay is protected by unusual rock formations that give it a really unique appearance. The shallow, calm waters make it especially popular for swimming and snorkeling, and the rocks just offshore create little coves and pools to explore. It's easy to see why Tobacco Bay is consistently mentioned among Bermuda's best beaches. And unlike some remote beaches, you have everything you need right here. There's food and drinks, bathrooms, and even a shower. The showers were especially nice because after spending some time in the water, we could clean up before heading back to St. George's. Rather than waiting for the later departure, we grabbed the 3 p.m. ferry back to the Royal Naval Dockyard. That gave us plenty of time to get back to the ship and get ready for our 6 p.m. dinner reservation. And that wrapped up day 1. The next morning, we were ready for another adventure, but this time, we let someone else handle all the planning. My sister had pre-booked Norwegian's Waves and Caves excursion, which meant we could just show up and enjoy the day. Our first stop was a return trip to St. George's, but this time we were heading underground. Crystal Cave is one of Bermuda's most fascinating natural attractions. The cave was discovered completely by accident in 1907 when 2 teenagers were looking for a lost ball. They noticed a hole in the ground, lowered themselves down, and discovered an enormous underground cave filled with crystal clear pools and formations. And when you walk inside, you can immediately see where the name comes from. The cave is filled with stalactites and stalagmites, and the formations have been developing over thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of years. What makes Crystal Cave especially impressive is the underground lake. The water is incredibly clear, and in some places the cave floor drops away beneath the surface, giving the water an almost surreal blue appearance. There are walkways and bridges through the cavern, so you get views from several different angles. It's cool, dark, humid, and completely different from anything you'll see above ground in Bermuda. After exploring Crystal Cave, we continued on to Clearwater Beach. Compared with Tobacco Bay, Clearwater feels a little more open and relaxed. The beach has soft, light-colored sand and that classic turquoise Bermuda water. It's a great place to slow down for a while, enjoy the scenery, and, if you're lucky, spot some of the marine life that lives around Bermuda's coastline. After some time at the beach, it was back to St. George's and onto the ferry for the ride back to the Royal Naval Dockyard. And that brought our 2 days in Bermuda to an end. Now, if you're visiting Bermuda on a cruise and you decide you don't want to venture all the way across the island, don't worry. There's actually plenty to do right around the Royal Naval Dockyard. You can explore the historic fortifications, visit shops and restaurants, and there are even water activities and play areas like these. So you definitely don't have to book an excursion to have a good time here. For us though, I'm glad we ventured out. Between exploring one of the oldest towns in the New World, swimming at Tobacco Bay, walking through the incredible unfinished church, exploring Crystal Cave, and relaxing at Clearwater Beach, we got a pretty good taste of what Bermuda has to offer.
Alright guys, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. I'll see you on the next video.